Hey everyone, my name is Vlad and today we will look at this lens 7Artisans 60mm f2.8 macro lens capable of 1:1 magnification ratio. This one is the first generation of this lens and let's look how does it perform and how does it holds in 2022. Small disclaimer, I received this lens from 7Artisans for a review, but everything you can see here is my honest opinion, my personal opinion, which is supported by the images you can look at and judge by yourself. Also, I have affiliated links in the description, which mean if you're gonna buy the lens, I'm gonna get a small commission at no extra cost to you. But that doesn't affect my opinion in any way, because your decision is just your own and you shouldn't make it just on my opinion. The lens came in this box, which is very well made, good materials, and also it's quite secure because there is lots of padding inside and nothing gonna happen to the lens. The lens itself, the quality is really good, it's a fully metal build. All the focusing rings and the aperture rings, they're really smooth, so there is no problem with this. Mounting point is metal and this one is a Fujifilm. It has this really interesting looking lens hood, which is removable, and it's made out of metal as well. Regarding the appearance of this lens, when I looked at it online, I never liked it, but in real life it looks much better. It's smaller than I thought, and even if it's bigger and heavier than my kit lens 80-55, it is still smaller and lighter than f2.8 macro lens from Fujifilm, so I would say it's a pretty normal weight and size for this kind of lens. As always with Chinese manual lenses, there is no electrical contacts, so you're not gonna get any EXIF information. And also don't forget to turn shoot without lens option on your camera, because I had quite a few questions how to use manual lenses. Otherwise it's not gonna trigger the shot. Talking about usage of this lens, it has a smooth focusing ring, as I've said before, and it has something like 220 degrees focus throw. But as you can imagine, this is macro lens and most of this range is dedicated for close-up and macro shots. Usability-wise, this lens is good enough for everyday use, but focusing on the objects further than 1 meter, it can be quite fiddly, because there is just about 15 degrees focus throw, so you need to be really precise. For example, this shot, it was quite difficult to nail focus. Focus ring is quite smooth, provide enough resistance. There is also zone scaling and printed out distances in meters and feet, as well as there is some magnification ratio markings. Aperture ring is smooth as well, but provide a bit more resistance, and it goes from 2.8 to 16. The tricky part of this lens is filter thread, because it has 39mm filter thread on the lens hood. If you remove the lens hood, it's a bit smaller than 39, and I don't know what exactly, because I do not have tool to measure it. So you might want to use step-up rings to use lens filters, or you might have some issues if you're using a system which mounts flush on the lens itself. 7Artisans 60mm is a 1:1 magnification ratio macro lens, which you can see on this image. That is a shot of the ruler from a minimal focus distance, which is actually 26 centimeters. And as you can see, it is something like 23-24 millimeters. And Fujifilm camera has a sensor size 23.6 millimeters, which means you can actually project real world size object on the sensor itself. So yes, it is 1:1 magnification ratio. Also, the lens has a comfortable working distance. You can even attach some macro rings to it, but I wouldn't advise, because there is not much gain in magnification. By the way, shooting macro will require more light, so if this is your first macro lens, be prepared for that. All the images I have here, they exported from Lightroom without any correction, so I turned off lens correction and details to avoid default correction. Sharpness on this lens is pretty good, even wide open. I've expected it to be softer, You can see the example in the center is pretty sharp. So this is an image with all the default sharpening turned off, and if we turn it back, it's getting even much better, so JPEGs are pretty sharp as well. Here is few images with center sharpness, and as you can see on f16 is getting quite soft due to the light diffraction. Corners are softer, wide open, but they're getting sharper when you close down a bit. At f16 it is soft as well, again for the same reason of the light diffraction. And here is few more images which shows how sharp this lens is. Regarding the distortion, it seems like there is a little bit of distortion, but it's so little that I wouldn't even bother about it. If you pixel peep hard enough, you might notice some chromatic aberration. There is a little bit of greenish tint and magenta, but it's really little amount of it. So I still consider it as a very good performance. Same story about vignetting, there is just a little bit of it, and wide open at f2.8. If you close down to f4, it is much better. At f4 I can't really see any vignetting on everyday examples. This lens produces quite a good amount of background separation, partly because of this 60mm focal length. Also it is relatively fast at 2.8, and if you are shooting macro, you're probably gonna close it down anyway to compensate for the lack of depth of field. Overall, this lens is really good. You can use it as all-rounder, but with manual macro lens you have to be really patient with the focusing and be really precise. It was great as a dedicated macro lens, and with honest 1:1 magnification ratio, with enough skill, I'm pretty sure you can get professional results out of this lens. That's my third macro lens, so I'm probably gonna make a comparison review. Also, I'll probably throw in some other affordable macro options in this review, and hopefully it will be interesting. This 7Artisans 60mm f2.8, definitely can recommend it. Really nice lens for macro photography, for someone who do not mind to have a fully manual lens. And in most cases shooting macro you don't really use autofocus anyway, so probably you don't need to pay extra money for autofocus when you're not gonna use it. Thank you for watching, I hope it was helpful. All the links in the description, please like and subscribe, and see you again.